How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists across America. It is Eric Erickson here from coast to coast. Glad to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, you get the live stream, the podcast, the show notes, the 24/7 stream, where you can hear on repeat for the next 24 hours my conversation with my next guest, the administrator of the Small Business Administration, the former senator from the state of Georgia, and a friend of mine, Kelly Loeffler, joining me by phone. If I can push the button there we go. How are you?
Hi, Eric.
Hi there. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for doing this. So, what's it like to be the head of the SBA?
I love it. It's really become a dream job because it really blends everything together that I've been working toward my whole life. It's starting from a very young age, too, growing up in a small business. So it's amazing. I miss being in Georgia, though. You do seem to be the perfect fit for this, given your background. And I know one of the things you wanted to talk about, and I'll get to that in just a second, is the shutdown. But you've also made headlines in the last couple of weeks with some fraud investigations, which, when I was a lawyer, I did a lot of small business setups and had to navigate the SBA and was always stunned by the clear opportunities for fraud that some people can have. And it seems like you guys have been putting the spotlight on some that really does exist. We got to work on it on day one. There's a lot to do, but we're starting to pull back the covers on it. So stay tuned. More to come. This is just the start.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So now let's talk about the Small Business Administration during a shutdown. There's not a whole lot you guys can do, and there are a lot of businesses that need your help but can't get it right now, I would imagine.
Well, you're exactly right, Eric, because the federal government being shut down means that here's what it means is the momentum that the SBA had achieved under President Trump and the agenda that everyone saw taking place, GDP growth, jobs, inflation growing slower than wages finally after 4 years, has come to a screeching halt because the Democrats have shut down not just pay for federal workers, for our military, but they've shut down SBA lending. That means about 320 small businesses every day will not be getting an SBA-backed loan at their community lender. That totals about $170 million a day that's not flowing into Main Streets. And so far, that's impacted roughly 6,000 small businesses, and it's approaching $4 billion in economic fallout for Main Street. And really, that's what this is about. It's about a Main Street impact that is going to be felt everywhere, including in states where Senate Democrats are purposely keeping the government shut to have an adverse economic impact on the people that live there.
Well, and let's make that a little more personal for you and me, both of us being from Georgia. You've got Warnock and Ossoff now continuing to vote against reopening the government. I got to imagine, you said, 328 a day? Surely there got to be a number here in Georgia that are going to be hurting.
Well, that's right. It's $35 million every week in Main Street lending that is not getting done in Georgia. And so when you see Ossoff and Warnock voting to keep the government closed, that means keep Main Street hurting. And Main Street had just come back from 4 years of massive inflation, excessive regulation, the threat of high taxes. And President Trump comes in, the administration, we get the working family tax cuts done, we're deregulating, energy prices are down, and then Democrats slam the door on them. So that's playing out in Georgia, and I see it especially down in Warner Robins by the Air Force Base. 20,000 civilian workers are furloughed right now. The Main Street businesses are hurting because people, let alone needing to buy groceries, they're not going out and doing other things like restaurants and shopping right as we approach the holiday season. So they're making it very, very painful in Georgia. And in New York, $40 million a week. Schumer's shutting down from New York small businesses. So I don't know what it's going to take for them to realize that they're really hurting people's livelihoods and impacting business that will not come back. This isn't something that you just make up with a paycheck.
So what is your advice to the small businesses that are in this hole now because they can't get money they were expecting from the SBA? Well,
first of all, call your senator if they're voting 12 times like our senators have to keep the government closed. Let them know this has real consequences. But if your senator has voted to keep it open, call Chuck Schumer and let him know this is nonsense. And I spoke in the press conference this morning that Speaker Johnson had, and I said, we need to have the Main Street common sense that prevails there brought to Washington because there's no common sense. I don't know what the motivation of Senate Democrats are. It's not clear what they're working toward. But it's very clear what our military is working toward. They want to keep our country safe, but they're not getting paid. It's very clear that women want to feed their infants and children, but their benefits run out on Friday. So Democrats haven't explained what their motivations are other than bowing to the far left wing of the socialist Marxist wing of the party that wants to inflict as much damage on the American people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've expected it to go on for some time, but here as we get to November 1st, I saw that one of the Democratic congresswomen is saying how cruel it is for Republicans to be denying women access to benefits to feed their children. And I think it was on CNN, and even the CNN anchor was like, well, why aren't the Senate Democrats reopening it? It seems like the Democrats are trying to talk about anything other than the thing they're doing. And it's also kind of weird that they want to get the benefit of the shutdown from their base, but they don't want to get any blame from the American public and blaming the Trump administration as opposed to just owning what they're doing. It's the weird world of politics these days.
Well, and there's real world consequences of that, which is $15 billion of economic impact. That plays out on Main Street. It's 43,000 jobs every month lost that plays out on Main Street. So these all have real world consequences while they're not living in the real world and not having to deal with the consequences because they view it as a paycheck that when everyone comes back, they'll just get a paycheck. Well, the damage is much more extensive. And we live in risky times today, and to not fund the military, I think, is egregious. It's immoral, and hopefully we can end this before the end of the week. But there's no signs of a thaw right now.
Right. Yeah, just aggravating. So, okay, let's pull back the curtain, I guess, a little bit on your job right now. What does it look like inside the Small Business Administration with so many of your employees not even able to work? I mean, what's going on in the office on a daily basis right now?
Well, it's a great question. We can do one thing, which is disaster recovery. And that's obviously very critical that we're there for Americans when they stumble into hard times like a disaster, which is something that they didn't bring on themselves. And that's what the federal government's there to do. Our disaster efforts here at the SBA are led by Chris Stallings. You might recognize his name from Georgia. Oh, yeah. He ran the disaster response effort for the state of Georgia. He's done a fantastic job. I'm actually heading to Alaska tomorrow for a quick visit there to see how the disaster relief efforts are coming, that the SBA is the largest disaster lender in the federal government. I'll be there on the ground for a few hours and ensuring that they know that it is vitally important to the Trump administration that the pain that the Democrats want to inflict on the American people does not extend to those facing their most challenging moments. So that's what we're doing. And then, we have many people at the agency still at work, though we're not getting paid, but still doing the work because disaster requires a number of different departments to support it. So we're staying busy, but we're also ready to reopen as soon as we possibly can.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, listen, thank you for spending some time with me. I would love to have you back when you guys have more on these fraud investigations that have come up, because I just know from when I was a lawyer, seeing the way this played out so often, and also the number of people who wanted to have minorities and women claiming to run businesses that weren't actually there just so they could take advantage of it. I'm sure there's so much there, and I think you're the first SBA administrator in quite a while who's really dug into this to root out the fraud. So I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, we'll be talking more about it, but we do have a whistleblower hotline, so you can contact our Inspector General if you know of fraud happening in the federal government. I made a commitment on day one that we would look at COVID-era fraud, contracting fraud across the entire lending fraud, the entire agency, to ensure that taxpayers get the accountability they deserve from those that try to defraud them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, and my best to your husband as well. It's always good to hear from you.
Thank you, Eric. Take care.
You too. Kelly Loeffler, the SBA administrator. Fantastic. Just a great fit for that job. She and her husband are super people as well. And with the shutdown of the government, you heard her say 328 businesses a day will go without getting SBA loans that they need to survive, and they're not going to be able to survive in some cases. And oftentimes, banks, lending operations, and others will cut them a break due to the government shutdown because they know it's not their fault, and they will do what they can to make sure that those businesses survive and allow them to pay later, understanding the situation. But it's still difficult for these businesses, and those are the businesses now starting to have trouble. And as I've said repeatedly over the last month, it's hard to remember the government is shut down on a regular basis because you don't feel it, but these businesses are starting to. And starting on Saturday, SNAP benefits run out. Brooke Rollins, the Secretary of Agriculture, was with me on Friday pointing that out, that SNAP benefits run out. We're kind of getting to a point, I think, where the Democrats are going to have to start thinking about the government shutdown. This is from Jennifer Slotis at Politico, 6 ways the shutdown's about to get worse. With President Trump traveling abroad and Congress deeply divided over a path to fund federal agencies, a pileup of deadlines on November 1st is set to put many households at new hardship. Popular programs that provide nutrition assistance, early childhood education, and air service to rural communities are now among those about to run out of money. Thousands of federal employees will miss their first full paychecks this week, so services like TSA screenings and air traffic control operations could be further stunted if those workers stop showing up, as was the case during the 35-day partial shutdown that ended in 2019. Things are about to get worse, John Thune warned in a floor speech in the Senate last week. That's to say nothing of the November 1st date that open enrollment begins for the Affordable Care Act. That's when people will start to see just how much their premiums are set to skyrocket because insurers aren't confident Democrats and Republicans will reach a deal to extend enhanced tax credits before they expire at the end of the year. Trump employed a strategic and unprecedented maneuver to alleviate the first major pain point of the shutdown earlier this month when he paid active duty members of the military out of other accounts. Still, the White House has yet to take similar steps to fund several other priorities where payments come due in the coming days. In Congress, some lawmakers are working to mitigate the shutdown's effect on select services with piecemeal bills, but none of those measures are on the fast track to final passage. SNAP food aid runs out November 1st. Federal funding will stop flowing on Saturday to Head Start programs. WIC nutrition assistance will also run out on Saturday. Essential air service to small, often rural communities runs out. Members of the military will miss paychecks on Friday unless the president's able to get this $130 million donation to pay some military salaries. Federal civilian paychecks will also not be issued for the first time this coming Friday. This is where we are. because the Democrats won't reopen the government. They continue to blame the Republicans. They're relying on a sympathetic press to help them blame the Republicans. But that only gets you so far. They're going to have to open the government, and the time is coming soon. I suspect what the Democrats want is to push the time limit past Affordable Care Act re-ups so people see the sticker shock and then scream at the Republicans. The Republicans say, well, we had a plan to fix this, but you kept the government closed, Democrats. Pass the blame game in Washington. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Those of you on the phones, be patient with me. This is a short segment. I'll get to your phone calls when we come back. We got a lot more happening out there today, including there's the story I actually want to get to when we come back, that the Democrats actually, now it's not just the upper income white progressives that have taken over the party. It's that those people actually aren't religious. And the Democrats now have a religion problem with non-white voters. Because if you're a non-white voter, you are more churched than upper income progressives. And those upper income progressives speak in a way that other people can't relate to. It's actually very interesting how the data is playing out for the Democrats, and it's not good data for the Democrats as they continue to be more and more out of touch. There's also an amazing story out of California. Scott Wiener, the very progressive Democrat out there from San Francisco, is running against Nancy Pelosi, authored legislation several years ago, and that legislation has enabled human trafficking of children, which at the time people warned would happen, and he was very insistent it wouldn't, and it did. Now, it's not a coincidence that this story is dropping right now because he's decided to run against Nancy Pelosi, and she's not quite ready to leave Congress, it seems. I don't think it's a coincidence at all that this story has suddenly dropped that makes him look like an enabler of human trafficking. Doesn't make him look like he actually is. Now, with banks out there having problems, have y'all seen the regional bank forecast now? Not looking good for a lot of regional banks out there because of lending issues. And Swiss America has been sounding the alarm about a secret war on cash and this assault on our freedom. With soaring interest rates, banks teetering on collapse, Swiss America wants to help you protect your hard-earned assets right now. You can get their report, The Secret War on Cash, completely free by calling or texting 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency, and it is spreading. Read the Secret War on Cash report completely free. All you do is mention Eric when you call or text 800-289-2646. Just text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, or call them or text them my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Swiss America can get you that report completely for free. Message and data rates may apply. When we come back, the Democrat religion problem, and also they've made some arrests in that Louvre heist. Hello there, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Let's go first to Mark. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Oh, hey, Eric. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Since with the shutdown starting to affect, it is affecting things like TSA and air traffic controllers, since airports do generate revenue, what kind of approaches have ever been taken to having airports either just fund these positions directly or, in the case of a shutdown, to cover the cost temporarily and be reimbursed by the federal government later?
Unfortunately, I do know part of the answer to that question, maybe not the whole answer, but because they're federal employees, you would have to share all of their employment information with the airports, and then that could potentially create a liability issue for the airports. And so they've avoided going down that route as complex, where they want uniform training and uniform standards. So if they let the airports hire their own individual people and stuff like that, they probably should. The other model, so it becomes too much of a complicated bureaucratic nightmare for them to try to do that, and privacy issues for the employees. That being said, what they should do and what they should consider doing is they should do what Canada has done, which is outsource the whole thing to a nonprofit. In Canada, their air traffic control is actually much more responsive, has better quality of life for the employees, and all sorts of stuff. And they are privately funded. Everybody pays a ticket fee, and you go that route, and it works great. And everybody seems to be happy in Canada with the way it works. And in the United States, every time it comes up, the unions are like, "Oh my gosh, we can't do what Canada did," even though actually they have larger land mass to cover with their air traffic control than we do, even as they have fewer people. Pierce, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric, how you doing this afternoon?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good. I was going to let you know that I have a daughter-in-law that is a clerk with the federal court in Chattanooga who has had to work, so she won't be getting a check Friday. Mm-hmm. And I heard on your flagship station this morning there is a little beginning to see a crack in the Democrat support on the shutdown. The largest federal employee union is telling them we need to do a clear resolution and get the government back open, and made a statement this morning.
I saw that.
And I'm
you've
wondering,
got John Fetterman coming out as well this morning and doubling down as well. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. So Pierce, right now, Eric Wasson from Bloomberg is reporting Chuck Schumer has declined to comment on the largest federal union saying it's time to reopen the government. He's not talking about it.
Oh, how convenient.
Yes. Yeah.
Afraid to lose those progressive donors, I guess.
Oh, that's exactly it. I'm sure he wants to see what AOC says before he says anything.
Oh God, there's another one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what gets me. They complain about millionaires, but AOC went into office with a net worth of about $68,000, and as of the end of last year, her net worth was around $12.3. Now you tell me, at $165,000 a year, how do you become so wealthy?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It does make you wonder about that. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi too, and her stock trades and all of that. Lots of questions about that out there. Now, I want to. You mentioned the shutdown. Margaret Brennan, who I'm not a big fan of, I was actually surprised. It doesn't matter what he said. Hakeem Jeffries was on, but you got to listen to this exchange. Just listen to her question.
I want to come back to health care in a moment, but the Treasury Secretary accused you of playing politics personally. And I know that your Democratic whip, Catherine Clark, said on Fox this past week that shutdowns are terrible, but as she put it, it's one of the few leverage items Democrats have. Do you think Democrats are gaining from this fight?
No, our focus continues to be on driving down the high cost of living for everyday Americans. Donald Trump and Republicans promised that they would lower costs on day one. We know costs haven't gone down. They're going up. Inflation is moving in the wrong direction. The Trump tariffs have made life more expensive for the American people to the tune of thousands of additional dollars per year. We know that electricity bills are through the roof. Housing costs are too high. Child care costs are too high. Groceries too expensive. And now tens of millions of Americans are at risk of having their premiums explode. In some cases, by $1,000 to $2,000 per year. That's what this fight for us is all about. Republicans have come up with a new conspiracy theory every week for the last 6 weeks. The Democratic position, Margaret, has been clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care.
Well, that was the quote from the whip herself when she said leverage. But I hear you on rising healthcare costs, but the immediate term, people aren't getting paid. 750,000 federal workers are on unpaid leave. 80% of the folks who work on our nuclear program are included in that figure. The Agriculture Secretary said there will be delays in food stamps for many of the 41 million people who rely on SNAP. And then at airports across the country, half of the flight delays, according to the Transportation Secretary, are because of staffing shortages. This pain is real now. So is there a point at which it becomes too great to justify continuing the shutdown?
Oh, the pain is real now. That's Margaret Brennan. Margaret Brennan saying that to Hakeem Jeffries. I guess you probably want to know his response to something like that.
Well, there is an urgent need to reopen the government, which is why we continue to demand that Republicans sit at the negotiating table so we can enact a spending agreement that's bipartisan in nature. That's what we've called for from the very beginning.
But the Republicans are saying they won't do that until you pass the funding bill, the clean funding bill that already passed the House. Why can't Democrats in the Senate get on board with that?
Well, we've made clear, and I'm thankful for the leadership of Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats, that we were not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people in an environment where Republicans have already enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers are closing all across the country. There's the possibility that Medicare could face a $536 billion cut, the largest cut to Medicare in history, if Congress doesn't act by the end of this year because of what Republican policies have done in their one big ugly bill. And now they refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. That impacts working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans throughout the country, including in rural America.
Well, they haven't refused. Leader Thune said he'd even put that up for a vote if you open the government first. But
yeah, look, I mean, the times are changing when at Margaret Brennan's Face the Nation, they're actually willing to answer some tough questions and ask tough questions of these guys on the Democratic Party side. It sounds like we woke up this morning and the headwinds have shifted against the Democrats. You have the largest federal union, federal employee union coming out saying you got to open the government. You've got John Fetterman now coming out saying it's time to open the government. You've got Margaret Brennan asking Democrats very tough questions about the pain being dealt with right now, and also pointing out that the Republicans could, in fact, put this up for a vote if the Democrats would come back. The Democrats actually don't want to. Remember, the Democrats have voted repeatedly to cut the very benefits they now say they want. On top of that, now you've got a problem for the Democrats, and that is the God gap. This is from Ryan Berg. He writes, I have no idea how the average American thinks about religion and politics. That's just a blind spot academics have. We spend almost every waking moment thinking about these topics, while many other folks don't think about them at all. It's a strange reality to wrap my head around. So my goal in doing all this writing is to give the average person a kind of mental scaffolding to better understand this subject. So here's a true and simple and profound fact saying that 80% of the people who voted for Donald Trump identify as some type of Christian. 48% for Harris. Just 17% of Trump voters identify as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. Nearly half of Democrats were non-religious. In short, it's much easier to deliver a coherent religious message as a Republican candidate than a Democrat. If you're working for the GOP, something along the lines of God, country, and traditional family values resonates with nearly all your voters. For Democrats, it's not that simple. A message of faith and values will probably turn off as many voters as it attracts. But here's what makes things even tougher for modern Democrats. Their religion problem is deeply entangled with race. Essentially, the party now has a large cohort of non-religious white voters alongside a diverse coalition of voters of color who remain deeply religious. Comparing the religious affiliations of Democrats in 2008 versus 2024 makes it very clear. In 2008, the Democratic composition was 50% white. In 50% black Protestants, and now 56% black Protestant. In 2008, it was 67% Hispanic Catholic. Now it's 50% Hispanic Catholic. Among white voters, there were 18% agnostic or atheist in 2008, and now 32%. It's shrinking further or growing in other demographics. So, for example, 8% of Hispanic Democrats were atheist in 2008. Now it's 16%. Among Asians, it went from 21 to 23%. Among black voters, from 5% to 6%. And that's kind of probably the problem there. In 2008, most white voters who supported Barack Obama were religious. By 2024, 55% of white Democrats were non-religious. Only 38% were Protestant or Catholic. Compare that to the shift of black voters. In 2008, 61% were Protestant or Catholic. By 2024, the figure had risen to 64%. Their non-religious share fell slightly from 35 to 31. Among Hispanics, the Christian share dropped from 74 to 62, while the non-religious percentage increased by 12 points. When you collapse these groups into white versus non-white Democrats, the divide is stark. In 2008, 55% of white Democrats were Christian versus 61% of non-white Democrats. White Democrats were more likely to be non-religious. By 2024, the gap had become larger. Only 38% of white Democrats were Christian, while 55% were religious nuns. Among non-white Democrats, 55% were Christian, only 38% were non-religious. Just think about the challenge of a candidate when trying to appeal to a group that's 38% Christian and 55% non-religious, and another that is essentially the opposite. How do you navigate issues like abortion access, or whether teachers should use a child's personal pronouns without parental consent? These groups are not remotely on the same page. The God gap emerges when you look at church attendance as well. Essentially, for every Democrat who goes to church now, there are 6 who don't. So the non-white coalition of the Democrats goes to church, believes in God, and doesn't want boys and girls bathrooms. The white part of the coalition, which is growing, does. And the Democrats are catering to that white part of the coalition. This is a problem for Democrats moving forward, because they're going to have to navigate a divide where people within the same party speak completely different languages, one a language of God and one a language of secularism, and they're not going to continue to be compatible. Meanwhile, within the Republican Party, overwhelmingly black, white, Hispanic, Asian, over 80% of them identify as Christian in some capacity, in some way. So you can speak with a common language, a common vision on the Republican Party side in a way you can no longer do in the Democratic Party. That's what the era of Barack Obama has gotten us. Well, David Brooks, not exactly a Trump fan, he of the New York Times and PBS, is making progressives angry over his comments about this proposed White House ballroom.
Well, I must say this, the photos are shocking, because there is something sacred about that building, and it feels like somebody taking a claw into a wedding cake. It just feels wrong. But I have long believed that the White House is just too small. It was built for John Adams and Abigail Adams, and people have added wings on since, of course. But it's just the rooms, and the West Wing is so sacred you can't touch that. But the Obamas used to have their state dinners out in tents. And John Kennedy, they had their state dinners, they had to spread everybody in different rooms. So the idea of having a room where we could have a state dinner or a big event, that still strikes me as the right thing to do. And I'm hoping future presidents will scrape the gilt off and make it nice.
He supports the ballroom. The New York Times supports the ballroom. They're mad at the Washington Post. It's now Jeff Bezos' Washington Post supporting it. It also turns out that Mark Thompson, the head of CNN, had a meeting with the president over the weekend and has now urged CNN to scale back its criticisms of the White House ballroom. And this just in, John Dickerson of CBS News says he's out at the end of the year. Remarkable. Just very, very interesting to see the news media here melting down and progressives furious with David Brooks for daring to say that maybe, just possibly, maybe it's a good idea to have this ballroom in the White House. Democrats just aren't really having a good moment. And even Karine Jean-Pierre, I'll play this audio for you a little bit, was on MSNBC, and they were having none of it with her. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. This is the conversation with Karine Jean-Pierre about her book on MSNBC.
Just quickly before you go, since you were talking about the difference in being at the podium and then now in your personal capacity, the special counsel Robert Hur, when his report came out about President Biden and the classified documents, you stood from the White House podium February 2024, and you said that his commentary was gratuitous, that it was unacceptable, and it didn't live in reality. And clearly the American public saw another side of Joe Biden's mental acuity during the summer's debate. Robert Hur was unemployable for a period because of the attacks from the Democrats and from the White House that you were at the podium leading. Have you apologized to Robert Hur?
I mean, look, what I can say to you is I saw the president every single day.
Have you apologized? I saw the president every single day. So you should have known there was something wrong, and you didn't apologize. Folks, let me tell you about Vision Computer right now. If you need a new computer, they can help you with one. But let me spend a moment on the managed IT services, and not just for companies, but for you individually. If you've got a computer and you've got concerns, you need tech support, you're in the gig economy, you got to stay online, you got to keep your computer up and going. For $199 a year, maybe a little less if you mention Eric sent you, Vision Computers can keep you going. Let's say you're a small business. Whether you're in California, you're listening to me right now out in Sacramento, or you're up in Hartford, Connecticut, you're a small business and you need IT to help your company stay online, stay up to date, but you can't afford an in-house guy, Vision Computers can do it for you remotely and save you money, and they're not going to outsource to AI. They're going to actually have human beings that you can get on the phone. Instead of doing chatbot AI tickets, you actually call a phone number, and in 15 seconds or less, you get the answer to what's going on with your computer. They can keep you up and running. Your employees, with Vision Computer in charge of your IT, your employees can be great at their jobs, and they don't have to be great at their computers, so it makes you more productive. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Call them and tell them Eric sent you. 404-COMPUTE or VisionComputers.com. Let Vision Computers take care of your managed IT services for your small business.